Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Newscast. It's Friday, so here is your handhelds, retro gaming, and gaming news. First up, this time we actually do have Snapdragon 8 Elite custom drivers. It was a maybe a week ago. We actually have them now. So for the last week, a lot of users have been getting a lot of custom drivers, and thanks to a repo called Freedreno_turnip / or -CL. Either way, there is a lot of drivers. They've been coming out. As of this video, version 20 is the latest, but it's like every few hours there's a new custom driver. So you should check that out. I'm going to put a link in the description. From what I understand, it seems like it's been hit or miss, but more hit than miss, which is good. For Switch, I think you have to set it to 1.5x resolution for it to actually apply and work properly, but this is all secondhand. I have not actually tested it. I'm just going by what I've seen other people say. So, Snapdragon 8 Elite drivers are here. This was never on my personal bingo card, but Daijisho has gotten its first update in months to 1.5.0. Yeah, Daijisho is back. I don't know if this means they're going to continually start updating it again, or if this is a one-off update, but there is a few different things here. I don't know if I would call these crazy updates at all. Just little things, little appearance settings, like add the ability to remove title from games, or adding a visual novels category. They fixed or improved the wiki scraper for whatever reason, and some other things like fixing RetroArch breaking changes and things like that. Either way, I'm happy. I would love to see more Daijisho updates. Speaking of, Azahar has had their biggest update so far with Azahar 2124. This is across all platforms, and I read over the changelog. There isn't anything that I can point to specifically that's a big change, big update, anything like that. It's just a lot of little improvements. However, for Android, things that you should be aware of, VSync is now off by default, which is a good change because it should be. And also, you have the ability to compress your games. So this was something we had on desktop where you could compress the games like you do to CHD with PS1 and all of that. You can do it here as well on Android now, which is really cool. I would suggest that you do that because I saved like 50% of my total storage doing so. So you should check that out. GameNative got an update to 0.7.0, and with this update comes GOG integration, which means you can sign in with your GOG account, download your GOG games, and play those games. This is a really cool feature, something that, as far as I know, the other options don't have. I can't remember. You can keep me honest in the chat or the comments. Does GameHub have it? I don't think they do. But anyways, GOG support is here. From what I understand, Epic support is next or there. I have not used GameNative, so I'm not sure, but I do know GOG and Epic were on their list, and it's cool to see GOG, so I guess Epic is next if it isn't already there. I guess I should also mention, Denuvo games actually work on GameNative as well, Persona 5 Royal and all these other games, so it's a really good update. Popular Nintendo 64 game, Quest 64, has gotten a recompilation GitHub. This is very early days, version 0.1, but if you like Quest 64 and you want to play it on other devices, then yeah, the Quest 64 recomp GitHub is what you're looking for. I have not played Quest 64, I probably should, but for those of you that like the game, this is for you. Flycast version 2.6, the Dreamcast emulator, is now out, and I looked over the changelog. Nothing crazy that I could see, just a little upgrades and little things like that. Nothing major from what I could tell, but obviously it's a big update. Now, Flycast is an emulator that I've been wanting to try out standalone on Android. It's just, I haven't had the time, so maybe this is the opportunity for me to do so, because you probably want to be using this on Android instead of the RetroArch core, but I don't know the difference. So this might be a learning opportunity. If anybody does know and has done those tests, let me know in the comments. Ymir, probably the best Sega Saturn emulator right now, and also getting updates like weekly, daily. Version 0.2.1 is now out, and it's just a lot of updates. This is early still for the emulator, but a lot of things do work and a lot of things are really good. I have not tried this. It is a Windows and Mac only emulator, or Linux as well. And I would really hope that it would come to Android at some point in the future. That'd be really cool. But if you are on PC, this might be the emulator for you. RPCS3, the PS3 emulator for PC, was updated, and now it supports ISO files. So I actually tried this. I can use my decrypted ISO files instead. I was using JB folders before. So I converted my entire library of PS3 games over to ISOs, well, decrypted ISOs, which now works across every emulator that I know of, because RPCSX does, APS3E supports it, and RPCS3 does. So if you want one game file library for all platforms and emulators for PS3, decrypted ISOs is what you want. And yeah, it's a great update. Okay, and now we have a new update for the AYN Thor. And there is a few things here. I'm going to look over what the most important things are. The biggest thing is the smart fan speed was changed to be a little bit more aggressive to address the overheating issues in high performance mode. And also in smart fan mode, you can now customize the fan speed curve. There's a few other fixes here, like they fixed an issue where the maximum custom fan speed was limited to 70%, and also fixed an issue with some HDR, fixed an issue with Wi-Fi. They updated the audio EQ configurations, which we have been using, if you followed my guide, James DSP and that plugin. And I want to know, for those of you in the comments, has everything been working out for you perfectly still with that combination, even after these updates? Now, one change they did make here that I am not a big fan of is they added the OLED screen protection features, which I showed off in my Odin 3 setup guide. Well, it's an Android setup guide, but I had an Odin 3 specific section, how to turn it off. Because if you don't, every 30 seconds, you're gonna get this whole thing on screen that like just looks like static, and it just comes across the entire screen. It gets very, very annoying. So if you don't like that, like I don't like that, then you might want to turn it off, and I'll write down the steps to do so in a pinned comment of the video so you know how. Now, if you're curious, I found a Reddit comment with a really good custom fan curve according to them. I've seen a lot of people like it. So if you want to use a custom fan curve, because I've heard that the aggressive fan curve is a little too aggressive for smart mode. So if you want to do it, you can follow the steps on screen, and that should help you get a better custom fan curve for the Thor. Now, one thing I do want to point out is Nicole from AYN has said that you have to do a battery cycle for it to accurately get your battery readings after doing the update. So what that means is you want to let it completely die and then charge it all up to full, and then you should be good for accurate readings. Because what's happening right now, people are installing the update and they're getting a whole bunch of battery loss. It's all wonky, all of that. So you need to do this cycle. They probably should have put this in the actual changelog, but you need to do the cycle so that it actually gets back to an accurate reading. So just keep that in mind. Now, there is a forecast for future AYN Thor updates. And in that, they want to add an OLED Ultra Black Mode option, which basically improves the color shift, and the Mura effect, for those of you that are affected by the Mura effect, which is something that applies at very low brightness on OLED models. They want to add support for custom audio EQ curves and provide some actual presets for sound profiles, which would actually be pretty cool. They want to add support for secondary screen rotation, so you can just rotate that secondary screen on its own. Add support for automatically binding the home and return buttons to the currently touched screen or the focus lock screen. Because right now, with the update, home and reset only apply to the screen that you're on. With this, it seems like they want to make it a toggle so it'll apply to wherever you're tapping or whatever. And then fix some typos and grammar issues and whatever in the UI. Have to say, I really like that AYN's been committing a lot to the AYN Thor. This is a lot more updates than we've seen on previous AYN devices, which has been a bit of a concern that people have had. We don't get a lot of updates for AYN devices. I do wish that they would pay some love to like the Odin 2 Portal and other devices, but the AYN Thor has kind of sold gangbusters, so I get why they're doing it. Either way, awesome stuff. Question of the week, and this question comes from my Discord because I just saw a post about it. How many handhelds do you have? That's it. That's the question. Actually, you know what? Let's do a two-tiered question here. How many handhelds do you have? How many handhelds do you use on a weekly basis? Let's do that. Because you might have like 20 handhelds. Like I'm a content creator that has like 1 million handhelds, but I only use 2. So in your scenario, how many do you have? How many do you actually use? That's the question of the week. Okay, first up in device news, Anbernic is teasing a new RG Slide Pro. That is basically just an RG Slide with the Dimensity 8300 processor inside of it. I got nothing for this one. The RG Slide was one of the worst handhelds of last year. It is a terrible handheld. If they want to release another one of those, then sure. I would have liked for them to just release a PSP Go sized device with that same function. That would be pretty cool, but that's not what they're doing. So if you like that chonky chonk, then you might have the option to upgrade that chonky chonk to a better chonky chonk, I guess. Okay, and news that isn't really news, but we have to talk about it. The Odin 3 was in hot water this week because someone found out that in the very first image of the Odin 3 spec sheet, way back in September 3rd, I think the date was, it had 5,300 megahertz of RAM posted there as the spec. Then, a day later, it was removed. However, nobody ever checked that. So everybody was assuming this is a bait and switch because they're checking now and that's not there, but it was there in the very first page. Long story short, people got mad and they're like, well, I paid for 5,300 megahertz of RAM and I'm not getting that, etc. So some users on my Discord did some digging, and so this is where the information came from. I really could not be bothered because this was a nothing burger of a story, but we're going to talk about it anyways. The very first spec sheet back on September 3rd was posted with 5,300 megahertz of RAM, and then a day later it was removed, and then days later is when you could actually pre-order it or buy it or whatever. So it seems like it was a mistake on the very first spec sheet. They removed it really quickly a day later, and then it was days before you could even purchase it. So this was before you could buy it, anything. So by the time you could buy it, the spec sheet said just whatever RAM, no megahertz or whatever. So the speed of the RAM as of right now, not sure what it actually is. Apparently it's like 4,300 megahertz or whatever. I think it's the same as the Thor. It doesn't matter because they didn't advertise it as having whatever speed. So this is a big nothing burger of a story. Now, it's still developing, so I'm not sure what other things might show up here. A lot of people were thinking that they put DDR4 RAM instead of DDR5 RAM or whatever's going on here. I don't know. We'll see as it develops and what goes on. But from the one part of it being the megahertz of RAM, it's a nothing burger. It's not a real story. So that's all I have for this one for right now. If it changes, we'll talk about it next week. Okay, and now Ayaneo is back in the news, but for a good thing this time. They are releasing an Ayaneo 2026 service improvement plan. Basically, there's a lot of things that they think they can do better, and they are making a sort of promise here in this one pager of how they're going to do better. I have to say, this is actually refreshing for somebody to see in this hobby. I like this. They are not the only company that deserves a service improvement plan. Retroid could pay attention to the stuff that Ayaneo is saying and doing here because Retroid has not had a very good year when it comes to the release of their devices. But let's talk about what Ayaneo is doing. First up, for customer service, they're talking about how they're going to clear the backlog of emails and they'll be able to be processed within 7 to 10 days. And then they'll have a normal response time of 24 to 48 hours after that. They're going to have a dedicated channel or an email for handheld issues. That way they can help address those. But those were for requests that were submitted before 2025. So I don't know how many people are still waiting for answers before 2025. We're in 2026 now, but that seems like a big thing. Then there's a professionalization upgrade. So they're going to implement a tiered support system. So basically you can raise the support level if you need it. Then we jump over to the after sales experience. They want to do fast 7-day replacements. They're going to have a repair guarantee. If repair exceeds 3 months, you get a direct replacement or a paid upgrade to whatever other model. They plan to have an overseas warehouse at some point within March to April. So they're going to have some sort of warehouse in North America to ship devices from. And they want a better ticketing system. On the shipping and crowdfunding section, they are planning to increase sales with actual stock, so reducing the reliance on crowdfunding. Not sure, they haven't really talked about why they do crowdfunding, but it seems like they're trying to move away from it for whatever reason, which is a good thing. We want them to move away from it. And better launches overall. Quality control, they want to do better quality control and processes and things like that, which is always good. And also rebuilding communication. So they plan on pausing new projects at the moment. And also the CEO is going to be active across different social medias with Q&As and things like that. As of right now, this is a document saying promises, right? These are things that they plan to do. And so I think for a lot of us, it's, well, okay, show us that you can do it. However, I think Ayaneo is being, I don't want to say unfairly branded as the lone company that makes these mistakes, but because they do deserve a lot of the things they get, especially from me, and I've said it a lot of times. But they aren't the only one that has all of these problems. Anbernic, Retroid, even AYN in some situations could stand to look at this document and things that they're doing and maybe take some takeaways from it. So this is only a good thing if they stick to it, and I hope they do. And I hope that other companies pay attention as well. And the last of the Ayaneo news here, but they had an update for KONKR Pocket Fit users. Now, they went really in depth here, so I'm going to try and just shift it down. Basically, for a shipping update, it looks like they are temporarily delayed until March, from my understanding, due to supply constraints. So it's kind of waiting. This is the Elite. At least Elite. They plan to have all of the G3s shipped by early February. So that should be done. But the Elite is sort of delayed until March, unfortunately. But they're also giving you a compensation of some sort. So for G3 customers, you are going to get a $15 Ayaneo store coupon. So if you can buy something off the store, you get $15 coupon. And for Elite users, you're going to get a $15 coupon plus a gift pack. So the gift pack gets you a storage bag, thumbstick caps, crossbody bag, and a screen protector. So they are trying to do things here. It seems like the issues are supply constraints, RAM, things like that, display, all of that. They're trying. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt on this one, as much as I know that this is par for the course for a normal Ayaneo device. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on this one. And we'll see how 2026 goes for them. Now let's jump back over to AYN Thor news, and you should know that there is a price update on the AYN Thor, and by update I mean it's raising in price because of, again, the RAM situation and the industry and all of that, what's going on. The base model is going up by $10. The Pro and Max are going up by $20. This is applicable as of January 20th, as far as I understand it. So yeah, unfortunately, going up by a few dollars. I don't think this is a make or break. I think this is something we're going to be seeing across all different devices. I know MagMe just did it for the MagMe Air X, so it's just something that's going to be happening. Okay, and friendly reminder, we have our games of the month, which is Metal Gear Solid 1 for PS1, Pokemon Odyssey, which is a ROM hack for Game Boy Advance, and Golden Sun, which is a game for Game Boy Advance. I just finished Pokemon Odyssey this week. It was okay. It does that thing where at the end of the game, it's like, okay, now you have to grind to be able to pass this part. And I got very angry at that, where the whole game was going smoothly and I didn't have to grind and I was like having fun. And then it stops at one point. And it's like, now you have to grind. And I'm like, all right, sure. So anyways, Pokemon Odyssey was okay. It's a different type of game. It is Pokemon, but instead you're going inside of a dungeon and each floor is called a stratum and you have 8 floors. And at the end of each floor is a captain that you beat, like a gym. But either way, it's pretty cool. It's an interesting type of ROM hack, which is something that I recommend that you check out. I am also pretty much almost done Metal Gear Solid 1 for the PlayStation 1. I have some thoughts. I have never played this before. I've played bits and fits over the years. I've never actually beaten it. The writing is something, I think. There's I know a lot of people like Kojima. As somebody who has none of that reverence, seeing this writing, I guess I had to have played it during the time because the writing is nothing special. But anyways, I'm almost done Metal Gear Solid 1, and I'm going to start Golden Sun this weekend probably. The only other game that I beat this week was Apollo Justice Trilogy. I finished that up. So Apollo Justice wasn't as good as the Ace Attorney trilogy. So I think it's still good. I still love the series, but wasn't as good as that. So I'm going to start up Investigations next, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, as always, we end off the newscast with the newscast Q&A. Send in your questions to newscast@joeysretrohandhelds.com, or there's a Discord channel on the Discord. You can send it in through there. First question comes in from Sean, P1. How do I throw ass? This comes from a Discord message where we've learned that throwing ass means twerking. And so if you want to learn how to throw ass, you got to learn how to twerk. Next question comes in from Duxa5. Hey Joey, would you ever consider having modern games be part of the Game of the Month? If not, the latest releases, what about Xbox One, PS4 era games? I have considered this. The problem is just way too many games. Even for me, and I play a lot of games, it would just be way too many games because you do want to play things on your own as well. And I don't want to be pigeonholed into having to play every single game of the month. Even right now, it's a little tough for me where it's like, okay, last month, I didn't really play the ones in the Game of the Month because Metroid is not something I like playing. But for this month, I'm like, okay, Metal Gear Solid, it's on my list, I want to play it. Pokemon Odyssey, also on my list, I want to play it. Golden Sun, also on my list, I want to play it. But now I feel pigeonholed into playing those games. If I add a fourth game, that's a lot of games in a month, especially even for me and for other people that have normal lives, I think. So as much as I would love to, I just think it's too many. I think right now is a good balance for Game of the Month, ROM Hack of the Month, and Game of the Season, which gives you a few months to beat. And the last question of the day comes in from Taco. If AYN didn't exist, what do you think would be your main handheld of choice right now in the current market? I don't want to envision a world where AYN doesn't exist. Look, I know that I am probably a lot more positive towards AYN devices with the exception of the Odin 3 than most other manufacturers, and that's for the simple reason that AYN makes really good devices. If they didn't exist, if we never got the Odin 2 with the Snapdragon processor, I don't think we would be where we are right now. I don't think any other company would have done what they did. They kind of pushed this hobby further in for power and all of that. And not even for power, for quality and things like that. Their devices are really well made. Now, if they didn't exist, and in a world where, let's say right now, all of the AYN devices didn't exist, my Xbox Ally X is what I use the most, so I guess that would be the choice. But if we're talking about actual retro handhelds, I don't know. I don't know because I don't like a lot of the other hand. I don't know what it would be. I'm trying to think of it. What would I use without them? I guess I would have to jump to some sort of Retroid device. Maybe the Retroid Pocket 5 or something with a grip, something like that. Or maybe even try out Ayaneo, like the Pocket Evo or something like that. I just don't like Ayaneo's software. It's a little too bloated for me. But maybe, yeah, I don't know. It's a really good question that I don't know if I have an answer to. It probably would be a Retroid Pocket 5, I guess, would be the answer. As much as I don't think that's the right answer for me, that probably would be the answer that I would have to settle for. Or I guess Retroid Pocket 6 now. Retroid Pocket 5 for now because I don't have a Retroid Pocket 6. Thanks, Retroid. Okay, and that's all I have for this one. So appreciate you all for watching. And that's all from me. Coming, Georgia.